Hello and welcome everybody. Welcome to our Maritime Innovations interview series. My guest today sits at the very center of the global ocean technology and offshore energy sectors. David Ince is the event director for the Oceanology International portfolio at Reed Exhibitions. And with over 13 years of experience at RX, David is the driving force behind connecting the communities that explore, monitor and protect our world's oceans. From the energy transition at SP Offshore Europe in Aberdeen to the massive global nexus that is Oceanology International in London, David's philosophy is simple. It's delivering the content, contacts, and community necessary to transform the business. We're sitting down to talk about the future of the blue economy and the road to OI 2026. David, very welcome to our interview.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Let's jump straight into the history that got us here. Oceanology International has a 50-year legacy. Looking at the transition from 2024 to the upcoming 2026 event, what is the single biggest shift you're seeing in terms of what the industry is actually looking for?
Thanks, Joachim. I mean, yeah, look, you're correct. In fact, we've now passed 55 years in terms of oceanology's history, which is a massive achievement at any business-focused event. And it's a legacy that I'm really proud of and that we take pretty seriously within our team. And I think what's probably changed most isn't necessarily the technology itself, but it's the expectations that are being placed on it. Oceanology is arguably the best place in the world to discover any sort of solutions used for operating in and around the oceans across marine engineering, ocean technology and science. It could be sensors or platforms, vehicles, services, and the like. And the show this year, it's on track to be the biggest in its 55-year history, which is amazing, with around 450 exhibiting companies in excess of about 8,000 attendees coming to London from all across the world. So within that, I'd expect that we'll see at least 100 of those companies launching new technologies at the events. They use OI as the global platform to showcase and bring solutions direct to the international market. And I think, on top of that, what we're seeing is this clear shift towards integration. The industry no longer turns up and says, oh, what does that technology do? Or what is it? They're asking, how does it fit into my operations? How does it fit into my project plans or my infrastructure and long-term strategies? So I think from offshore energy to ocean science, as you've mentioned, ports to shipping, defense to coastal sectors, OI connects people from across all of these different industries. And there's this growing demand for solutions that connect data, automation, decision-making. And what we do is we try and reflect that shift as best we can. So it's becoming, I guess, less about individual components or even companies in some instances, and more about how that ocean and marine enterprise functions as a system, which makes it really relevant today, probably more relevant today than it's ever been. And personally, I can't wait to open the doors on the 10th of March in London for all this to happen.
That evolution clearly drives how you curate the event, and which leads me to a significant specific addition to the portfolio for 2026. You're opening up a new front. A major highlight for 26 is the launch of the coast sector. Why was now the right time to give coastal and shallow waters tech its own dedicated focus, and what does this mean for the traditional maritime operators?
A good question. And I think that, look, the technologies that are being showcased within Coast, from monitoring and survey to data and engineering solutions, a lot of them aren't new to OI. They've always been there. However, I think what we can see now is that they're becoming increasingly more relevant to mainstream maritime decision making. So I guess giving this area a clearer focus, it allows us to bring the conversations forward. It allows us to attract potentially new organizations and new people to oceanology for the first time, while also keeping it, really connected to that wider oceanology ecosystem. And the reason we're doing it's in direct response to what we hear from across the maritime and ocean enterprise. Coastal and shallow water zones are where climate pressures, infrastructure investment, operational risks, they all collide. So I guess from a maritime point of view, ports and harbour authorities, vessel operators, the space is becoming critical. It might be resilience to flooding. It might be access to accurate environmental data. It might be just more safe and efficient port operations. But that coastal bit is no longer two things, and it's no longer a boundary. It's the front line of some operations. So personally, we've been working on this for 2 years, so I'm excited to see how a renewed focus on coastal and shallow water in terms of our conference program, show floor theatres, in terms of some of the exhibitors that are at the show, and new attendees coming will become an important piece of OI this year, and then as we move into the future as well. So yeah, really excited to see how it comes.
So whether we're monitoring those coastal zones or deep sea environments, the actual vehicles doing the work are changing rapidly, and that brings us to the hardware. Our readers and listeners are especially interested in USVs, ROVs, and OI 26. We will see a massive presence of autonomous systems. How close are we to seeing these platforms become standard of the shelf tools for the wider shipping and energy sectors?
Well, look, I mean, at OI, it's one of the core parts of the show, right? Autonomy, uncrewed systems, whether it's surface vessels, underwater vehicles, ROVs, even some of the aerial platforms. For us, they've moved well beyond the cool tech phase. It's part and parcel of what oceanology is, and I think what's striking is it's not just the number of platforms and OEMs that we work with that are showcasing this technology, but how operationally mature they have become in some of the different sectors that come to OI. I think of things like some parts of the offshore energy sector, survey, environmental monitoring, and more in the defense sector. Uncrewed systems, they're already embedded in certain day-to-day operations. So I think we're seeing a shift now towards more reliability, standardization, legalization in some respects, and integration to those existing maritime workflows. And I guess for shipping and for ports, the opportunity at the moment is maybe less about autonomous vehicles now traveling cross oceanic voyages, but more about how that autonomy supports navigation, smarter inspections, reduced risk, and better data. And I guess that sums up OI in its entirety, right? A lot of the event is around data acquisition and analytics and how that can be used for more efficient operations for whatever industry that may be. And I guess it's that cross-sectoral connectivity that we see at Oceanology all the time that brings some of the real value to anyone who comes, because they're getting to meet people that might have a similar challenge in a different industry that they probably don't come across on day to day. And I think that's really important. And I think it's a real value and why people come back to OI year on year, not just to meet the people that are working directly with them, but to meet people from other spheres that have similar challenges or solutions that they can integrate.
So, of course, the deploying of autonomous vessels is only half of the battle. The other half is managing the massive influx of information they collect. It seems the conversation is moving now from the hull to the brain. So, and we often talk about the hardware, but OI 26 seems to have a growing emphasis on the digital ocean. How is AI changing the way we interpret subsea data, and how does this benefit a ship owner or port authority?
Well, I think it's another one of those important shifts that we've seen over the last 10 years at OI. Digital ocean is a great term. We've used it in shows in the past. Some of our exhibiting community have used it as well. There's vast amounts of oceanic subsea operational data that's being acquired. And I guess the value now is how quickly you can turn that into an insight that can be used. AI is part of that. It's enabling faster interpretation of information, better prediction, maybe more confident decision making. So I guess from a port, if you were looking at something like a port, that might be improved sediment management systems or asset maintenance. For a ship owner, it could be route optimization, compliance support, all of these different things. And I guess another example is things like digital twins, that's combining the physical infrastructure, the hardware, as you've said, with real-time environmental and operational data to make better informed decisions, possibly quicker, usually quicker, I guess. And I guess what OI shows really clearly is that AI doesn't replace maritime expertise, scientific expertise, operational expertise. It augments it, right? It helps operators across industries make better decisions in increasingly more complex environments. And I think the other really interesting thing with OI is that we get a mix of ocean companies that are specialists in AI and autonomy, but tech companies that have suddenly realized that the ocean is a space that they should be playing in. And that, again, it creates that cross-sectorial connectivity between the pure ocean maritime space and the technology, which is fantastic as well.
And beyond just operational efficiency and data interpretation, there's obviously a much larger driver shaping every conversation in our industry right now, and that is sustainability. So the maritime world is under immense pressure to decarbonize. How does this technology showcased at LI or will be showcased at LI, specifically in offshore wind and ocean energy, act as an enabler for the broader shipping industry's green transition?
Well, I guess it's just that sustainability piece and decarbonisation. It's not a single industry challenge. It's across many different sectors, and it's not a single technology challenge. And I guess OI showcases key parts of some of the enabling infrastructure that are behind that energy transition. So if you look at offshore wind, ocean energy, even things like seabed mapping and environmental monitoring, they all play a role in reducing emissions and improving efficiencies across value chains. So I guess again for shipping, maybe that means better port integration or smarter routing, cleaner energy interfaces and the like. And I guess, again, with the areas that we focus on, OI provides a realistic view around how some of these technologies do connect. It's not conceptual, it's not future concepts, but it's solutions that are already being deployed to support different industries and their moves towards net zero. And that's something, again, it's something that I'm excited about. It's something that we're really proud of, that we get a good snapshot of the industry.
Meeting those decarbonization goals is going to require fresh thinking, often coming from outside the established players. And you have always made space for the disruptors. And so you've been a supporter of the Future Tech Hub for startups. If you look at the current cohort of innovators, is there a specific under-the-radar technology that you think will be a household name in maritime by 2030?
Sure, there is, but I guess, look, the core value for us at RX, the company I work for, who own and operate Oceanology International, is we're in the business of building businesses. That is number one priority for everything that we do. So working with companies that are either new to the industry or new to oceanology, it's hugely important. And I guess, as I said, I don't know if there's any single technology that's the exciting bit, but it's that convergence between data, intelligence, autonomy, sensing, and how that can be used across different industries for similar purposes. I think any technologies that enable continuous, low-cost monitoring, particularly maybe in ports or coastal zones or on offshore infrastructure, that's becoming, or maybe has already become, absolutely mainstream. And these are solutions, I guess, that are transforming how assets are managed. It's how risks are understood and how decisions are made. So some of the innovations are coming from startups. So we've got 22 companies in our Future Tech Hub, all of which are new to the show. And that's maybe where you can spot some of those ideas early on. But we've got in excess of 100 new companies that are exhibiting for the first time at Oceanology this year, not just defined as future tech or startup, but new to show that I'm sure we will be able to deliver value for. And then on top of that, we also work with a huge network of different partners, from technical societies like SUT and SMI to IMAREST, innovation and technology clusters, and all of those different organizations from all over the world that are trying to drive innovation in different areas. And I go back to my original point, our job at Oceanology is to try and make sure we're connecting these people in a way that creates value for everybody that's involved, which is great.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to discuss these future technologies as a concept or prototypes, but it's quite another to see them in action on the water. So that brings us to the unique selling point of London. Finally, for our readers and listeners who haven't decided whether to fly to London in March, you have the live dockside demonstration at the Royal Victoria Dock. In your opinion, what's the one thing you can see at the dockside that you simply cannot experience through a screen?
Well, look, we like screens as well, and we've got a 3-day conference program inside the exhibitions hall that's covering technical content, strategic content, economic topics. But as you say, we're lucky enough to be located directly alongside the Royal Victoria Dock, which is a historic piece of London's maritime history in itself. And I guess the dockside demonstrations are where that becomes real, right? We've got 20 companies hosting 3 days of either in or on water product demonstrations, where you can see how systems behave in live conditions, how the operators interact with the technology, and how the technology performs outside of maybe a more controlled environment. And I don't think there's any substitute for being able to watch a technology that you may be interested in using in your day-to-day work operating live and being able to ask questions in real time and see how different technologies might work together. And I guess that physical experience it builds in a way that maybe a video or a brochure can't. But that also is complemented by the fact, as I said, that we've got about 450 exhibiting companies inside that bring a huge variety of physical technology and kit to display. Big, small, massive, it's fantastic. And it's one of the reasons I think OI and oceanology continues to resonate so strongly across these different sectors, because it's about real world application and not just theory. And it brings together the users, the operators, the engineers, the developers, all into the same room. And again, they mightn't normally talk to each other, but they get to at OI and possibly have a little bit of socializing and networking at the same time, which is great fun.
David, thank you so much. It's clear that Oceanology International isn't just a trade show. It's a barometer for where the marine and energy sectors are heading. From the rise of the blue economy and the new coast sector to the integration of AI and the practical reality of autonomous shipping, the 2026 event sounds like a critical convergence point for the industry. David, thank you for taking the time to give us a preview of what's come to at the Excel London this March, and we look forward to seeing the technology in the water. And for our listeners, if you want to see the dockside technology firsthand, make sure you check out the show notes for registration details. Thanks so much for listening. And David, thanks so much for your time today.
Joachim, thanks very much, and hope to see some of you at Oceanology in London. Thank you.
Yeah.